With the release of the Nintendo Switch 2 coming soon, I've been looking back on the last 8 or so years of the Nintendo Switch, and I've been thinking about all the memories I've made and the games that I've played. I've had this console since launch month back in 2017, and the amount of hours I've put into both my original Switch and my Switch OLED are more likely in the thousands, and I hold no regrets. But choosing my favorite games for this system is going to be very tricky, because while there were a lot of Switch games I played, there were a good majority that I didn't get to try or even finish. I didn't get to play any of the Xenoblade Chronicles games all the way through, for example, though I did get through about 4 chapters in the Xenoblade 2 during my freshman year of college. The Fire Emblem series was not on my radar, aside from maybe like 10 minutes of Fire Emblem Warriors. I didn't have that much interest in Pokemon aside from one outlier, and I didn't feel like spending money on expensive cardboard. I think the only rules I'm going to put on myself are no collections like the Mega Man Legacy Collection or Super Mario All-Stars, and I'm going to limit myself to maybe 1 or 2 remasters and like 1 remake, because if not, there would be maybe 3 Switch original titles here. But first I want to talk a bit about how I feel about the console in general, because the Nintendo Switch was one of the first consoles I ever paid for with my own money. I had some cash saved up from fair projects I did the previous fair season, and I used those funds for 2 things. The first being a Galaxy Edition new Nintendo 3DS XL, since at the time I wanted to play Hyrule Warriors Legends at a higher frame rate, and of course I also used some of that money for a Nintendo Switch. And that was because of Breath of the Wild. I want to save talking about that game in particular for the end of the video, but Breath of the Wild was the title that really cemented how much I would come to enjoy the system overall. I really liked how it was essentially the same power and then some of like a Nintendo Wii U, but I could actually take it on the go with me like my Nintendo 3DS. And there were plenty of opportunities to put the system in handheld mode and pass a Joy-Con to a friend and play games together. Hell, I did that all the time in high school, my senior year. But most of the time on my Switch has been solo. I didn't really start multiplayer stuff until games like Mario Kart 8 and Smash Brothers came out. But I've always predominantly been a player of single-player games and experiences, so you'll probably notice a trend as we go on throughout the video. These games are in no particular order, by the way. Just because I talk about one game more than another, that doesn't mean I think anything less of those games. Every single game I talk about in this video, I absolutely love, and I highly recommend them all if you're looking for new experiences on a Nintendo platform. Though at this point, you're probably better waiting for a Nintendo Switch 2, so that way those games can load faster and run at better stability in certain cases. Especially because there are a couple of games that are getting like free patches for resolution, frame rate, and for game share, like Super Mario 3D World and Mario Odyssey. So alright, let's jump into this. I may as well get the most obvious one out of the way, but I love Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I've put so much time into the original Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U, and I played almost nothing but 8 Deluxe until Mario Odyssey came out that holiday season. I think that was back in like 2017. A few new additions to the roster were great at the time, putting in obvious picks like King Boo, Dry Bones, and Bowser Jr., as well as the Inklings from Splatoon. The revamped battle mode was near perfect, and I think the only thing that could have made it better was if they had an elimination setting for Balloon Battle and Bob-omb Blast. Speaking of, Shine Thief and Bob-omb Blast returning was amazing to see, coming back from Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and Renegade Roundup is genuinely some of the most fun I've ever had for Mario Kart Battle Mode. I'm pretty sure I've played this game online more than any other game I've ever owned, and I put a lot of time into Smash Wii U and 3DS online back in the day. Some of my favorite memories were made in online lobbies with friends, and hell, that's how I got some of the most popular videos that are on this channel, so that will always be a big reason as to why Mario Kart 8 Deluxe holds a special place in my heart. Another reason, of course, being the Booster Course Pass, pretty much doubling the track roster and bringing in more characters. I was absolutely overjoyed having Petey Piranha back. He was always my main in Double Dash, so just having him here was fantastic. It's just a damn shame because Nintendo barely ever sends him an invite for Mario Kart.
Hey guys, how you doing? Come on in.
No.
Just go around it. He's not gonna hurt you. Just go around it.
No.
All right, I tried just going under him.
I think we should probably just go home. Maybe we'll do it another time.
No.
The developers really set themselves up to make this game the ultimate Mario Kart experience, and with all the content crammed into this package, it's clear that for the time being, this is the Mario Kart game with the best current value, which may change come the release of Mario Kart World in a few weeks, but we'll have to see. I'm ready to move on from the 11 years of racing that was Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but I know that whenever I'm going to return, I'll have a great time. Now, if Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was the multiplayer Switch game I put the most time into, then Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition was the single-player Switch game I spent the most time on, with maybe an exception here or there. I wish that the game had some sort of like in-game timer, because I know for a damn fact that I've put over 1,000 hours into this Zelda celebration. And if you combine my time from the Wii U and the 3DS versions, that's probably well over 2,000 hours. I've done almost everything you could think of in this game. I've gotten every character, every weapon, every costume. I've completed every adventure mode map. I've collected every heart piece and heart container, and I've collected every Gold Skulltula puzzle piece. I've played this game like damn near religiously over the last 7 years, and I'm still not done. Like, I have yet to get every character to level 255. I have yet to unlock the giant Kuko. I have yet to get the best possible skills for each character's weapons, and I've barely scratched the surface with all the My Fairy stuff that got added in Legends and brought over to Definitive Edition. Maybe one day I'll complete it, maybe I won't, but that doesn't change my love for this game one bit. Yeah, it's basic. You mash light and medium attacks to build up your super attacks, and then you watch your KO count go up. You could chalk it all up to being mindless, but I find it relaxing and enjoyable, ironically. I attribute that to the game's great character roster. It has a lot of diverse movesets and representation from almost every major Zelda game before Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. My favorites being Young Link with his Fierce Deities mask transformation mechanics, and Ganondorf's Trident moveset bringing the damage while staying on the move. I'm well aware that the Warriors games are all much of the same thing. You move to a keep, you clear out a horde of enemies, you lather, rinse, repeat until you defeat the enemy captain and win the day. But I think the Zelda aesthetic works a bit in this game's favor. Seeing these iconic characters beat the ever-loving shit out of hordes of monsters, it scratches a particular kind of itch for me. And while yes, this game does have its issues and it can get a little grindy, it will always be one of those games I can turn my mind off and play, and that's a very good thing in my book. And this mindset carries over to Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, but not exactly on the same scale. While the original game was a celebration of everything in the Zelda mythos, Age of Calamity is a collection and celebration of Breath of the Wild, disguised as a prequel to said game. Though the story did go in a different direction than what I was expecting, it was still an enjoyable time. Once again, there were lots of diverse movesets to experiment with, and unlike other Warriors games, there isn't that much of a focus on racking up KOs. To be honest, there isn't too much focus on traditional Warriors gameplay elements. There aren't any outposts around the map. There are a lot of mechanics that are brought over from Breath of the Wild, like the Sheikah Slate abilities, the perfect dodge that comes with a Flurry Rush follow-up, and all the elemental rods you can collect. The game also isn't as mindless as previous Warriors titles, and you do actually need to pay attention to enemies and units. This game could actually get difficult at points, which I welcome, especially since the Master Sword isn't as big of a crutch in this game compared to the original Hyrule Warriors. Thankfully, this game, while featuring less characters overall compared to the previous entry, has some of the most diverse movesets in the Nintendo crossover games. My favorites being Link's two-handed weapons, his flail weapon from the DLC, Urbosa, and Mipha. I think the map design can get pretty cramped at some points, and I'm not the biggest fan of how healing is handled, but I think that if you love the original game, you'll love Age of Calamity. And you can get even more mileage out of it with the DLC, which I still have yet to finish, and it's mostly because I've been trying to do this one mission in a particular way in order to unlock the new Yika character, Suka, but for some reason it never wants to register me completing it, and I'm hoping that this game gets some sort of performance patch before Age of Imprisonment comes out on the Switch 2 later this year, because if there's any game that needs it, it's Age of Calamity, and if you want any proof as to why, play the Divine Beast sections, and then you'll see. This game was definitely one I was looking forward to for a while. With how big of a success the first game was on Wii U, it was no surprise that a sequel was already on its way. I also think it's funny, the first game's most requested feature was the first one they showed off in the trailer with the slopes. On top of that, all the new features added were really good additions, which opens up even more possibilities for levels that could become almost indistinguishable from the official made levels from Nintendo. There was one level that I played where you were bouncing off of Koopa shells, where you had to just kind of bounce over the green ones, but the red ones you had to hold the jump button in order to get over obstacles, and little levels like that are just really, really fun, and really show you how, like, expansive you can get with these games' mechanics. The best part about this game for me, though, aside from, like, making my levels and playing everybody else's creations, is the story mode. So the developers make a bunch of levels, and then they take advantage of all the new builder parts and all of their intricacies, and they even have some that have exclusive mechanics of their own. Playing those gets your brain pumping with ideas of, okay, if the developers are using these mechanics this way, how can I use these for my own levels? And even getting to pick between like Mario, Luigi, Toad, and Toadette is something that may not seem like much, but it really goes a long way, because not everybody just wants to play as Mario. There's a reason why games like Mario Kart are so popular, is because you can choose between Mario, Luigi, Peach, and all those other characters, but having these four, it's great. I will always pick Luigi because it's Luigi. And there was even a lot of like post-game content that they added after launch, and my favorite is the Master Sword power-up that turns you into Link. You got like the Pegasus Boost Dash, the bow and arrow, the bombs, and that opens up possibilities for level design. I tried making a level myself with Link's abilities, and it didn't turn out that great, but I'm also not that creative, which I'll fully admit. I do think that the biggest problem with this game is how you build, and granted, that's in no way the Switch's fault, just because the original idea for Mario Maker felt like it was born to be on the Wii U using the gamepad, but nobody bought a Wii U, so if they were going to make a sequel, that was something that they had to gut. While the problem can be mitigated, because you can use the Switch's touchscreen and handheld mode, I also don't want to constantly take my Switch out of the dock and then put it back into the dock just to make more Mario levels. But I think this is a Switch 1 game that would benefit a lot from having mouse controls on Switch 2, and it would fix the biggest problem that I have with Super Mario Maker 2. Kirby's first outing on the Switch isn't exactly my favorite in the series. Not a bad game at all, but not one of his better outings. The next game after, though, was Kirby's first true 3D platformer in the form of Kirby and the Forgotten Land. And this game was such a pleasure to go through, and I had a smile on my face during the whole ride. I know that Kirby games aren't supposed to be like technical showcases or these huge AAA releases, but the game is just so fun. All the abilities along with their upgrades and the Malfo modes were a huge highlight for me. They felt like another form of abilities, but they never showed up enough to be invasive in any sort of way. Each section's use of them was packed with so much creativity and made the levels feel so diverse from each other. I do wish there were a few more like regular abilities, even though there are upgrades to said abilities. They all still feel somewhat the same at the end of the day, but the combat feels so good, especially with the addition of the dodge that slows down time. It enhances regular enemy encounters and boss fights to a completely different level from previous entries. And this game may have one of my favorite Colosseums in the franchise, thanks to the amount of really good bosses and very good super bosses. And I've been wanting to replay this game for a while, but I think I'm going to wait for the Switch 2 version to come out in August, just so I can experience the game in 60 frames a second with the new content. That's actually a big complaint I have with Forgotten Land at base, is its performance. And I'm not like a 60 FPS purist or like 4K or nothing, but there are times that this game can chug and it gets pretty unbearable at certain points. But I think this is probably not going to be an issue with the Switch 2 version, but we're just going to have to wait and see. I swear that this is the only remake on this list, and I know it's technically cheating, but it's my video, so fuck you. Parentheses affectionate. The Thousand Year Door remake was my dream come true for a modern Nintendo remake. Honestly, I would have been satisfied if they just did an HD remaster and spat it out on the eShop. But they went out of their way to just remake the whole game from scratch, and it's damn near perfect. I went into it a little bit during my top 10 games of 2024 video, which you can check out somewhere up here. But I want to talk about a different aspect of the remake that I didn't talk about last time, and that is the music. I think the orchestrated music was the direction to go for this, especially with the Origami King composers being behind the wheel. While I haven't played that game for myself yet, the bits and pieces of the soundtrack I've listened to are just fantastic. And that same sort of like feeling in the music, that vibe, is brought over into the rearrangements of these classic songs. And every single piece of music from the original is given a few new like measures of additional music. Aside from like one or two songs, I think the new additions enhance these themes a lot, and it elevates them to a higher level in comparison to what they used to be from the original game. One theme I want to highlight in particular is a theme from Chapter 8, so minor gameplay and music spoilers here, but in the second section of the Palace of Shadow, there's a theme that's played in the original that I found extremely underwhelming for a final area, being like a weird remix of the underground theme from the original Super Mario Bros. And the Fortress theme from Super Mario World. Like, I guess it fits, but it doesn't really pump me up to head towards the end of the game. It just kind of puts me to sleep, and I'll play a little bit of it right here. version in the remake, however, is incredible. Now it really feels like I'm getting closer and closer to the final boss, especially with the additions of the electric guitars and the Gregorian choir in the background. But they also added two new variations of the theme that change as you get closer to the fight with Grotus, and they are spectacular, especially the third variation, Path to the Throne. This theme has become my all-time favorite final area music in any video game, like straight up. It has an amazing blend of being enjoyable as a music piece, but also bringing the right amount of atmosphere to remind the player that whatever lies behind that door may be something you might not come back from. And that whole spiel, that applies to every remix in this game. I could go on and on and on about how much this remake means to me, but I think I'm going to save it for an inevitable comparison video down the road. This is a title I wish I played more, but I have a very on and off relationship with Splatoon in general. There are times where I get really into it and I play a lot of matches, and then there are times where I want nothing to do with it. But I don't think it's necessarily the game's fault, I mostly believe it's something on my end. That doesn't change the fact that the Splatoon games are really fun, my personal favorite being the second entry on Switch, Splatoon 3. I think that this game was the big jump that everybody was looking for when going from the first game to the second game, because Splatoon 2 really feels like Splatoon 1 again with some new stuff, but Splatoon 3 isn't really afraid to try new things and shake up the status quo, especially with the single-player campaign, which at first seems like it's more of what came before, but after the first boss fight, you're taken to a brand new area with levels that are similar in structure to the Octo expansion DLC from Splatoon 2. I think the structure and execution is better handled here, and it leads to a comfortable yet challenging time that allows you to really learn the game's mechanics and prepare you for the online multiplayer, which is pretty much exclusively how I play the game. I love the hell out of Turf Wars to the point where I don't even bother with like the other rank modes. Maybe one day I'll get to it, but not right now. I wish that the game would rerun some of the old Splatfests to really spice things up, especially since some of the ones in Splatoon 3 have those 3-team matches as opposed to the regular 2-team ones. I have yet to buy the DLC pass for this game, so I don't really know what I'm missing with side order and all that other stuff. But apparently it's like a roguelike, so maybe at some point I'll sit down and take a look. But this is a title I really want to play more of in the Switch 2 generation, especially if the game receives any sort of free performance update, or even a Nintendo Switch 2 edition. But God save this online multiplayer if this game gets mouse controls. You are going to have sweats in the lobby, it's going to be ridiculous. I didn't want to have more than one Mario Party game featured in this video, since when you get down to it, they're all pretty much the same game. But the best of the three that has come out on the Nintendo Switch, in my opinion, is Super Mario Party Jamboree. This title does everything you need in order to make a great Mario Party game. Fun board layouts that are easy to traverse and have fun gimmicks, items that enhance that traversal, and plenty of traps to piss everyone off, all in a race to collect the most stars and become the fabled superstar. While I was still somewhat prefer the older titles, especially Mario Party 2 and Mario Party 5, I think that Jamboree is a damn great entry despite its flaws. Though I believe that Jamboree has a fantastic selection of 1v3 and 2v2 minigames, the other general ones aren't exactly the best selection, but when the game pumps out great minigames, it pumps out great minigames. I mentioned that the mall was my favorite map in a previous video, but the racetrack and the Wiggler Forest are also great boards. I don't think I can say much more without heavily repeating what I said in that previous video, but if you love the older Mario Party games, then give Jamboree a shot, whether it's right now or with the Nintendo Switch 2 edition that has the Jamboree TV stuff, whatever that is. A good 3D Mario game for a system goes a long way. Just look at the Nintendo 64 with Super Mario 64 or the Wii with Super Mario Galaxy. The Switch brought the return of the open 3D sandbox formula that Mario 64 established back in 1996, and expanded on it so much with Super Mario Odyssey. Even after the release of Bowser's Fury, I'd still say this is the most imaginative 3D Mario game that we've ever gotten. Each area is so intrinsically designed, Mario's controls are so snappy and responsive, and the movement options broaden the level design by a lot. There's so much freedom you can have when running around to collect the power moons, and while there are some segments where you have to use specific capture or some other level gimmick, there are times where you can still nab the power moon without doing it the way the game wants you to, and for the most part, I think that was all by design. The captures raised this game by so many points for me. Getting to play as these iconic Mario enemies is so damn fun, especially Little Flingbird or the Charge and Chuck. Despite how much creativity is in this game, I do think it can be a bit bloated at times, especially considering how many moons there are to collect in the game. And I think that there are also a few points where the game can get a bit slow, but I would 100% still play this game from beginning to end, time and time again. I'll always remember the day my grandma took me to Toys R Us to buy a gift for my birthday, and that moment I remember laying my eyes on Super Smash Bros. Melee is one I'll never forget. I followed up with every single game since then, but the amount of hours I've poured into Smash Ultimate dwarf all of the other games combined. I mean it when I say that I would not be where I'm at right now if it wasn't for Smash Ultimate. You think that's a joke? I am not kidding. Smash Ultimate eventually led me to going to college at Ferris State University and meeting some of my best friends. And technically, without Smash Ultimate, I would not have the current job that I have right now, so I am extremely grateful to the game. The build-up to release was an amazing experience, and some of my most wanted characters got added, like Ridley and King K. Rool, and my Melee main Young Link made his return. And that was just the base roster. The DLC announcements were something else entirely. Getting big characters like Joker from Persona 5 or Kazuya Mishima from Tekken, and then getting your out-of-nowhere picks like Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII or Steve from Minecraft. It was something you had to be there for to understand, and the cherry on top of all that was the addition of Sora from Kingdom Hearts, who was by far the character I wanted the most out of anyone in the history of Smash Brothers. Smash Ultimate is the best Smash game to me, like straight up. Like how it plays, how it looks, who's in it, what stages are there. It all culminates into the best celebration of not only Nintendo, but gaming in general. There are a few things that aren't the best though. World of Light really got repetitive after a while and was only held up by the boss fights. Spirit mode itself is a fun idea, but I wish all the effort went into a more expanded event match mode or even a more traditional adventure mode. But the most important part of Smash is kept intact, and that's all I can ask for. I will say that if we don't get another Smash game for a while, I am perfectly content with that. And I got a feeling that since Sakurai and the Smash team are currently busy with the new Kirby Air Ride game, we won't see one at least for a few years into the Switch 2's lifespan. But you know what? I hope they take their time. I am in no rush to buy a new Smash game, and I am content to play plenty of other titles until a new one enters the fray. I think that a Zelda game in this video was inevitable, and if you've seen my reviews for the Zelda games, then you know how much they mean to me. I wanted to start with Tears of the Kingdom first, since it's the game I like the least out of the two, but I still absolutely adore this title. There are some aspects about it that have sort of soured over the years, ever since I did the original review, but it hasn't soured my opinions on the game overall. In many ways, it's the perfect sequel to Breath of the Wild, while in others, it doesn't do enough to distinguish itself from its predecessor. And honestly, if I was going to play one over the other, it's going to be Breath of the Wild, mostly because I think that game is a bit more focused. But I'd still play Tears of the Kingdom in a heartbeat if I was given the chance. I love Link's new abilities, and utilizing them in combination with the terrain and enemies leads to crazy shenanigans I couldn't hope to recreate anywhere else. I think the new additions to the areas from the previous game is enough to give this game a shot, just to see how many things are actually changed. There are still things I'm discovering a few years later, and it's fun to boot up both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom and look at those areas directly for comparison. One area I want to talk about is the Great Plateau, the place where Link started his journey in Breath of the Wild. For the most part, the plateau is about as well put together as it was previously, but you can drain the moat from the bottom to climb the staircase up and make your way back to the beginning. And going to the Temple of Time will give you a new side quest that you can go through in the depths, and heading back to the Shrine of Resurrection will show you that all the Sheik attack inside was just completely cleaned out, and there are even some smaller details that were added, like a Hylian greatsword being put by King Rome's grave, or his hut on the other side of the plateau coming under the control of the Yika clan. I had the biggest smile discovering these new aspects, and part of that reason is because it reminds me of the good times I had with Breath of the Wild. I wanted to end the video talking about this game specifically. Aside from Smash, Hyrule Warriors, and Mario Kart, there was no other title I've put more time into. It was the perfect direction to take the Zelda series, even with the doubts I had when the game was fully revealed at E3 2016. I'd mentioned it in the Breath of the Wild review, but I ended up getting Breath of the Wild before I got my Switch, and not even the Wii U version. I got the Switch version before I even got the console, and the wait for the console to get to my house was excruciating. But once I was able to finally place that cartridge into the console, I felt like a small piece of myself that I was missing finally found its way back to me. Like everything that had happened in anticipation for this title was leading up to that moment, where Link's consciousness drifts to life once again as the waters of his containment bay recede. The introduction of the game is nearly perfect, with having Link wake up to look upon this unfamiliar landscape, and in that moment the series sort of comes full circle. In the series' inception, Shigeru Miyamoto wanted to name the main character Link as a means to represent that link between the game and the player, and I think that's really highlighted here. We're in the same shoes as Link, and we don't know what to expect from this new open land of Hyrule, and while this opening scene of Link running out to the cliffside to gaze onto the broken world may not seem like much now, it was enough to get me teary-eyed when I played the game for the first time. There was already so much emotion in this moment, and my heart was just running so quickly at this time. I'll never forget my first encounter with the Guardian. Seeing this buried machine spring to life and fire at me for seemingly no reason made its mark and then some, especially when I encountered a fully operational one that still had its legs. They were almost like no entry signs telling me you are not ready for what is up ahead, which I mean makes sense since I was pretty close to Hyrule Castle by then, but the fact I could even get close to my end goal and have the smallest chance of coming out of it alive was incredible. I think there are times where I don't really understand or think about how Breath of the Wild's world is or how much freedom is actually given to the player. Most open world games will still have you complete objectives, conquer fortresses, collect artifacts, or some other item that you need to do on a list in order to reach the final boss. But you could just casually walk to your final destination without doing a single thing in Breath of the Wild. And the fact that you can go straight from the opening of the game to the final boss within about half an hour is amazing. And yeah, it's not easy, but it's incredibly rewarding all the same. That same freedom carries over to every shrine, every tower, every divine beast, every boss. The world is truly your oyster, and it's a beautiful oyster. I don't know if we'll ever get a Zelda game like Breath of the Wild again, and I say that knowing that Tears of the Kingdom exists, but with that game, it didn't spark the same initial joy as its predecessor because this was the same Hyrule we explored for 6 years beforehand. In Tears of the Kingdom, it felt like coming home to an old friend that you haven't seen in a while, and while that has its own flair of magic, to me, nothing will ever beat out those opening hours of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. There is a reason that this is my favorite game of all time, and all I can say is that if you're planning on getting a Nintendo Switch 2 and somehow have yet to play it, please do yourself a favor and make Breath of the Wild one of the first games you buy, and be prepared to make memories that will last you forever. So yeah, those are all my favorite Nintendo Switch games. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you guys are looking forward to the content I have planned for the Nintendo Switch 2. We're getting really close to release, and I'm so excited. So if you liked the video, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more stuff. So I'll talk to you guys later.